How you doing, guys? Dr. Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, your Wellness Way affiliate in Yorkville, Illinois. Hope you guys had a great Monday. If you saw the video that I did for Mental Stress Monday yesterday, some of you had asked for, hey, I hope you're feeling better. I am. So if you guys don't know, I really hurt my back. I did a number on my back last Wednesday. In fact, I had to take the afternoon off. Just because there was no way I was going to be able to see patients and bend over people and sit and do consults, and otherwise I would have been hurting for certain. So I know it's funny that a chiropractor hurts his back. I know it's kind of ironic. I've heard the jokes, so we're human. So I am on my way back. But unfortunately, I did probably the worst thing that you could do anytime that you have any kind of back injury is I had to get into the car and drive 9 hours, which was the worst thing, and then drive 9 hours back a couple days later. So it kind of inhibited my healing a little bit. People ask me, what did you do? I didn't ice. Not one bit. I didn't ice. I didn't take pain medication. I suffered through it. Because just remember, guys, you take pain medication, you try to inhibit the acute inflammatory response. Yes, I know it's very painful. All you're doing is you're just inhibiting and you're prolonging the healing process, okay? So it's the same thing. Why don't ever ice? Why would you want to decrease an inflammatory response that's there to heal you? It's why we look at things from a different perspective, all right? So I never ice, don't take pain medication. Pharmaceutical companies are not getting a dime of my money. However, I did take some turmeric, a little bit to help modulate the inflammation. That helped a little bit, but today's the first day I can actually stand up straight. So I appreciate everybody's thoughts, everybody's prayers. All right. So if you guys just joined us right now, welcome. This is part 2 of basically where we're talking about type 2 diabetes, a little bit about type 1 diabetes today too. So I got some interesting stuff I want to go over with you. But if you're joining us right now, let me know where you're watching from. I always appreciate hearing from where people are watching from. I know we got some awesome warriors in what's going on, Dr. Donald. Appreciate you guys watching. Some warriors in Canada, warriors in Australia, lots of wonderful people from the United States as well. I always love to hear where people are watching from. I love to hear it. It brings me so much happiness. So I always appreciate when you guys let me know where you're watching from. And I always appreciate when you guys share this because, this potentially has the ability to help put people back on the right track, especially when it comes to type 2 diabetes, guys. Actually, both type 1 and type 2 diabetes are exploding. If you look at type 1 diabetes and how many more people have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, it's not genetic, guys. Your genes don't change that much in 30 to 40 years to cause such an exponential increase, which means that autoimmune response is something that we are doing to ourselves, okay? We're doing it to ourselves. There's something that we're doing that's causing an immune system to have to clean out a lot of damage, okay? Same thing with type 2 diabetes, guys. This is 100% completely lifestyle induced. It's caused by chronic stress and the overconsumption of processed sugars. That's it. And type 2 diabetes is the body's adaptation to try to protect you, like we said a couple of weeks ago, from the cells literally undergoing a quicker cell death. It says, well, we need to live a lot longer, so we're just going to down-regulate these insulin receptors so that we can't get all of this sugar into the cell. So we'll start shuttling it into fat cells, and once we can't do that, yes, our blood sugar is going to be elevated. Yes, there's going to be some issues later on the road, but again, the body always chooses, I can die now or I can die later. Guess what it's always going to choose? It's going to choose survival over anything else. So last week we went over, are these popular type 2 diabetes medications, are they even working? And if you didn't watch that, make sure you go back and watch that because basically I went over how literally like the mainstream diabetes medication, metformin for example, how it causes so many different side effects and how really looking at studies in which they only used about 200 to 300 people in order to get it approved, basically it showed how even if you take it, even taking it, you're still a type 2 diabetic. So what I'm going to go over with you guys today is I'm going to go over with you an alternative, and there are a couple of alternatives, and no, this isn't to replace your doctor's expertise. Although people ask me that all the time. Usually what we say is talk to your doctor. And if they refuse to get you off of medication, find another doctor, okay? So we're going to talk about, from a different perspective, we're going to talk about this right here that not a lot of people know about, and it's called Gymnema. And Gymnema actually means the sugar destroyer, okay? It's called the sugar destroyer. So I'm going to talk to you about Gymnema, and I'm going to talk to you about, from research, why Gymnema is absolutely awesome, why it's absolutely amazing. And we use that as kind of a bonus when we are working on trying to resensitize the insulin receptors. Now guys, just remember this. If you want to resensitize insulin receptors, quit exposing it to so much insulin. And what is exposing it to so much insulin? The overconsumption of sugars, okay? Now, we're heading into holiday season. You guys just went through Thanksgiving. I guarantee you that probably 90% of you had a little bit too much sugar. If you had a little bit too much sugar, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Just be honest. But the thing is, guys, is I want you to think about it. The holiday season usually starts October 31st and goes into about mid-January when we come out of this hibernation and this holiday coma. And really, when you think about it, guys, you're spending 2.5, maybe close to 3 months just damaging your intestines, damaging your pancreas, damaging your insulin receptors, only to go back and pretty much start from square one again, which is why so many people don't move forward when it comes to their health. In fact, I got into the office today and I saw that there's a couple of people had canceled, and I know why, because they might have been sassy, and I thought, well, what's the point? What's the use? And let me tell you guys something, is that, when you're under stress, when you're under, when you say the timing isn't right, I'm going to tell you that there's never a right time. There's never a perfect time to work on your health. And no, during the holiday season, not a perfect time to work on your health, but it shouldn't be an excuse not to work on your health, because guess what? You got your birthdays, you got your anniversaries, you got your vacations, you got your Easters, you got all of that, and you combine all of that, you're literally spending 4 months out of the year saying it's not a good time. Guys, when it comes to your health, you're either all in or you're all out. So when you're coming up with excuses and saying it's not the right time, what that means is that when you are squeezed, you resort to your worst possible self, which means you're not going to be working on your health. And it's no wonder why people love this time of year, because they turn it into a vacation from their worries, from their health, from so many different things. And I believe that you don't have to be that person. You don't have to be that person. So yes, celebrate. You can celebrate Halloween, celebrate Thanksgiving, celebrate Christmas Eve and Christmas, celebrate New Year's Eve. But guess what? It's 4 or 5 days, instead of doing it for, the next basically 90 days. You see the difference between that. So let's talk about an alternative to some of the popular medications. Let's talk about Gymnema, which means the sugar destroyer, okay? So I'm going to go over with you research. Where I find this research from National Institute of Health, also called, you can find it at pubmed.gov, which is basically an archive of all of the research around the world in peer-reviewed journals that they publish. Now, a lot of this research that I'm going to show you doesn't come from the United States. And the reason why it doesn't come from the United States is because they're not interested in anything natural. They're interested in synthetic and things that are going to make a whole bunch of money. But let's talk about Gymnema, okay? So Gymnema comes from the leaf, and its extract, we're going to show you about Gymnema sylvestre, okay? So here's the first one, September 2021. It's a very recent article, and here's what they said. The effect of Gymnema sylvestre supplementation on glycemic control in type 2 diabetes patients, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So what that means is they're looking at other research, and they're looking at all the other different types of research articles that do in order to come to a conclusion, okay? So here's what they said. They said they did 10 studies. They looked at 419 participants, which is actually more than the metformin that they did to get it approved. They showed that, Gymnema supplementation significantly reduces fasting blood glucose, okay? Postprandial blood glucose, which means after eating, and glycated hemoglobin, which is your A1C, guys. This is what your doctor should be measuring at a minimum. So it's your 90-day blood sugar average. And so they're basically looking at the deterioration of your red blood cells over 90 days, because high insulin exposure deteriorates your soft tissues, including red blood cells, including your joints, which is why so many people with type 1 diabetes have so many joint replacements. So they also have so much heart disease. So they also have so much kidney damage, because what is that? It's soft tissues, okay? And glycated hemoglobin compared to baseline. Further, our study also found that Gymnema significantly reduces triglycerides as well. Our study shows that Gymnema supplementation is effective in improving glycemic control or blood sugar control and reducing lipid levels in type 2 diabetes mellitus patients, and suggests that such supplementation might be used as an effective therapy for the management of type 2 diabetes. Now, when was the last time you had an issue with high A1C, high blood sugar? Really, you should be measuring your insulin levels as well. And the doctor says, hey, you know what? We're going to work on your diet. We're going to test you for some inflammatory foods. And we're going to put you on a restricted lower type sugar diet. So you're going to have not only foods that are inflammatory, but we're also going to decrease the amount of easily absorbable carbohydrates that are going to be spiking your blood sugar. While we're doing that, we're also going to be putting you on Gymnema to give you a better insulin response that's going to lower your triglycerides and is also going to lower your blood sugars. Wow, sounds like a plan. And also it's going to be natural with no side effects, and it won't give you the runs every time that you take it, which is a common side effect of taking metformin. So this comes from, again, PubMed. Here's another one. The effect of Gymnema sylvestre administration on glycemic control, insulin secretion, and insulin sensitivity in patients with impaired glucose tolerance, also known as pre-diabetes, okay? Insulin resistance, okay? Metabolic disease, metabolic dysfunction is a lot of times what they'll call it. So here's what they said. Gymnema sylvestre, a plant typical of India, has long been known for its hypoglycemic or blood sugar lowering effects, okay? So what they said is at the end of this intervention, 46.7% of the patients obtained normal values in A1C. In conclusion, Gymnema sylvestre administration patients with impaired glucose tolerance or prediabetes decreased basically their A1C, increasing insulin sensitivity. There was also improvements in anthropometric measures and lipid profile. So what they're saying is they're saying you're getting better triglycerides, better cholesterol numbers, and also what they said is they said, yes, it actually resulted in weight loss. Now guys, anytime that you're increasing your insulin sensitivity, you're going to be lowering your blood sugar, which basically means that you are going to not be storing fat, okay? You know how many people who come to me with their number one complaint is that I cannot lose weight. The next thing that they do is they say, well, I can't lose weight. Maybe I should be exercising more. And guys, that rarely ever works, especially in women. And the reason why is because when a woman starts to have problems with weight loss, it's not a problem with them not necessarily exercising enough. Because I see women who say, well, it's not working at 3 or 4 times a week. I'm going to start doing 5 to 6 days a week. We're going to do high intensity exercise, endless amounts of cardio. They end up gaining weight. So guys, a lot of it has to do, especially with women, is with liver function, but it also has to do with blood sugar sensitivity. Now, one of the reasons why is these people are so inflamed and nothing is going to happen right when you are experiencing the effects of inflammation. When you are undergoing the effects of inflammation, the body will tend to store fat. It will not want to burn fat. And why would it? The body is under attack, whether it's physical trauma, chemical stressors, or whether it's too much mental stress. The body says, I'm getting attacked here. I need to go into fat storage mode as much as possible because Lord knows I don't know when I'm going to get my next meal, especially if a bear is chasing after me, okay? So then they go and they exercise more and more and more, and then they actually put more weight on. And so, guys, a lot of it has to do with your liver, has to do with your blood sugar and your insulin sensitivity, and it also has to do with your inflammatory levels. But I find this fascinating is that 46%, almost half of the patients that they tested who were pre-diabetic, actually by supplementing with Gymnema, had their blood sugar levels and their A1C levels go back to normal. How incredible is that? So here's another one, protective and therapeutic effects of natural products against diabetes mellitus via regenerating pancreatic B cells and restoring their dysfunction. Here's where it gets really interesting, is because Gymnema, what a lot of people don't realize, has the ability to regenerate beta cells in the pancreas. The reason why this is really important is because if you have someone who's a type 2 diabetic, and they've been a type 2 diabetic for a long period of time, and basically what they're doing is they're just kind of blocking the effects of type 2 diabetes, not getting to the cause, and it's still causing a massive release of insulin from the pancreas. Well, what happens is eventually your pancreas can only go for so long and do so much. So yes, you can develop pancreatic fatigue. You know, if I told you, hey, listen, I want you to run this mile, but I want you to start off and I want you sprinting. And so, you know, within 100 meters into this mile, you're already, you know, dead tired. And I said, keep sprinting, keep sprinting. Eventually what's going to happen is you'll probably collapse at the 300 to 400, you know, yard mark with still 3/4 of the mile left to go. And so what happens is you start losing blood sugar control, start becoming insulin resistant. You still have some fuel left in the tank, but because we don't correct the cause, we keep driving that pancreas to keep releasing insulin until the guaranteed effect that it's going to have is that you're going to undergo, at some point, if you don't correct the cause, pancreatic fatigue. So really what happens is you can become a type 2 and then a type 1 diabetic, which means that those cells can no longer generate any kind of insulin because of you just have driven them into a state of like fatigue, okay? I've seen patients like that. But what's interesting too is when you have a type 1 diabetic in which there's been an autoimmune response that the immune system has tried to clean out the damage within the pancreas, and the end result is destruction of those beta cells. And in both cases, one of the things that they found was that Gymnema has the ability to be able to regenerate the beta cell function within the pancreas. Now, how incredible is that? Now, I have seen this in clinical practice. We had someone who was a type 2 and a type 1 diabetic because of pancreatic fatigue, and on post-testing, we actually saw a marker, it's called C-peptide, because she was taking so much exogenous insulin. We saw the C-peptide levels actually double, which meant that her pancreas started to take over and started to produce again its own insulin, which is really, really awesome. Because how many people, how many kids are, you know, considered type 1 diabetes, you know, and the doctor just says, well, there's nothing you can do. You're just going to be on insulin for the rest of your life. But how much more important would it be is that if they were testing this, rather than waiting for them to have a, you know, observable symptoms, if they could test for this, you know, and they were using it as yearly blood work, they could start to see a decrease in C-peptide activity and then be able to do things to correct it before you turned into having no beta cell function at that point. Now, we just measured someone who was basically a 30-year type 1 diabetic, and she still had pancreatic activity. It was very low, but we started to introduce things like Gymnema into her in smaller amounts while she starts working on, because she was basically a type 2 diabetic as well, insulin resistant. You can be both. And basically we said, hey, you're taking way too much insulin, literally 40 units. I'm like, you need to start to get this down. And in the meantime, we start fixing the reason why. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start to introduce gymnemic acids and see if we can get that pancreas to start to recover. Now, will it recover back to 100%? I doubt it, just because of what the immune system has been doing for 30 years. But anything that we can do to get the body to start to perk up and start to improve on its own, in my opinion, is a medical miracle, okay? So here's what they said. the primary source of literature that they looked, so they looked at different sources of literature. They looked at PubMed, Scopus, Google Scholar, and what they found was this: natural molecules, including berberine. So what is berberine? So anything with berberines in it. This would be golden seal, for example, okay, which is something else that helps with insulin sensitivity. Curcumin, so curcuminoids, what's that? That's turmeric. Magniferin, steviosides, and capsaicin, and extracts obtained from the plants like Gymnema, okay? So you got Gymnema. So berberines are going to be Gymnema and golden seal. And also, how about this? Stevia, really. Stevia used as a natural sweetener, okay? Now, what they found is they were found to produce regenerative and anti-apoptosis, which means programmed cell death, effects on the beta cells. These natural products were also found to increase insulin secretion by stimulating the B cells, okay? So when they say there is nothing that you can do, there is no hope, find a new doctor. Because as long as you're breathing, as long as you have breath in you, it means that you still have regenerative abilities inside of your body, okay? Now, how about this one? The efficiency of Gymnema derived gymnemic acid on the restoration and improvement of brain vascular characteristics in diabetic rats. And here's what they found. The result of the present study revealed that Gymnema treatment decreased blood vessel damage in the brain, suggesting it may be used as a therapeutic target for the treatment of diabetes. Now, what I want you guys to realize is if you look at the number of Alzheimer's, if you look at the number of people with dementia, you look at the number of people who are experiencing early onset dementia, guys, I had a woman patient, 39 years of age, already experiencing early onset dementia. Now, I will tell you, one of the reasons why it happened was this was an immediate effect 2 weeks after her vaccine, okay? In fact, we did a couple of cranial nerve tests, and you could see that she obviously had a stroke that was affecting cranial nerve function. So when people say, "Oh, well, look at the facial paralysis and things like that," well, again, those are all influenced by the cranial nerves that are sitting within inside of the brainstem. These are very, very sensitive. Because if you think of the cranial nerve function, how it innervates such fine movement, especially around the face, is that these are very sensitive to any kind of issues with coagulation. So any kind of blockages caused by a hypercoagulatory state. So you get some coagulation there, and it blocks the vascular supply going to that nerve. Those are very sensitive. In fact, a lot of times with what you see happening on the face, you will see this happen first. So I asked her, go ahead, smile. She was like this, couldn't raise the eyebrows. Her eyes could not track. You could see she had a droopy eyelid. And I said, well, wait a second. Did any of the doctors tell you that you had some kind of, micro stroke that's going on? They said they never told me. They never looked. They said I was fine. They put me on some medications for Alzheimer's at 39 years of age. How ridiculous is that? They just need to be honest and say, we need to uncover every single reason why. And she was hurt by the vaccine. There's no doubt about it, okay? Now, if you look at people with early onset Alzheimer's, there's something that's called type 3 diabetes. Type 3 diabetes is basically when the brain becomes very insulin resistant, okay? You also will see that people who are diabetic also can, have what's known as diabetes brain, which they have a lot of issues with trying to get energy into the brain because the brain primarily runs on glucose, okay? So when you look at this and you see changes in the vasculature within the brain, Gymnema actually shown is that it can be used as a therapeutic for the treatment of diabetes in order to decrease blood vessel damage going to the brain. So if you look at diabetes, guys, no one dies from diabetes. What they die from is the effects of diabetes, which means it's some kind of stroke, some kind of heart attack, kidney failure, infection, losing a limb, losing an arm, losing toes, and that's the effect. In fact, a lot of times what diabetics actually die from is from some kind of vascular disease or from some kind of infection because they have so much vascular damage is that they can't actually get enough vascular supply even to the skin, which is why you will actually see, if you're becoming a type 2 diabetic, you'll start to see very tight, very shiny skin and changes in skin color around the neck, and you'll also see it around the ankles. So even Gymnema has been shown to improve the vascular supply going to the brain. Here's another one. Sensory-guided multidimensional exploration of anti-sweet principles from Gymnema. So here's what they said, okay? Now, this is more of a hack than anything else. I know that some of you like to do some of these life hacks, but here's what they found. It revealed that large differences in anti-sweet activity among the isolated compounds were gymnemic acids, 15 and 19. It showed the highest sweet suppressing activity, okay? So one of the ways that we use Gymnema in some people, because they might lack willpower, and I said, well, it's okay if you don't lack willpower. That's developed. That's not given to anyone. But how you develop extreme willpower is have a doggone strong purpose behind you, right? When people say, I can't do it, it's too hard, you don't have a strong purpose behind why you are doing this. If you have a very weak purpose, meaning I just want to look better, I want to look better in a Speedo, I want to look better in a bikini, that's not a very strong purpose. And guess what? The junk food will always win. It will always win. And so when people don't have a strong willpower, one of the things that you can do is you can do the Gymnema taste test. This is interesting, and it works. So what you do is you'll take some of our Gymnema that we have, it's in a liquid herbal format, and you put about 7-8 drops on the tongue. You put it on the tongue, you just let it hang there on the tongue for about 1 minute, you swallow the rest, and then what you'll do is go ahead and have something that tastes sweet. So it might be a cookie, it might be, whatever it might be, cookie, cake, just the sweets that you like. And you go ahead and you eat that. So anything that tastes sweet will absolutely taste like the worst cardboard you've ever eaten. I don't know if any of you have eaten cardboard, but I'm assuming that's what it would taste like. And it doesn't taste good. In fact, it just tastes like tasteless sandpaper. And so if you need that, then what you do is, if you know that you're going into a bad situation where you know that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be, at a Christmas party, or I know I'm going to Christmas and there's going to be a lot of stuff there, go ahead and block those sweet taste receptors on your tongue, and it will last for about 2 to 3 hours, in which you will not be able to taste anything sweet. You'll be able to taste other things, but you won't be able to taste anything sweet. And so it's a great hack that you can do that they've looked into, is saying, hey, you know what? If that's what it takes for you not to destroy your health, then let's go ahead and do it. I remember, I don't know if you guys know, is that they used to have something that you would put on your nails if you were a habitual nail biter, and it made the nails taste so bad that people would never do it because it tasted terrible. So it's a good way in order to break bad habits, because guys, we're creatures of habits. You guys realize that? So some of us, we just eat based off a habit, and we eat certain things based off a habit. And so it's a great way that you can do in order to be able to break habits, okay? So think of this. I just went over one thing, Gymnema, the sugar destroyer, and here is what the research shows. Better blood sugar control, regeneration of your beta cells, regeneration of the vascular system of the brain, and then finally, being able to control your cravings. So think of that. Now just remember, guys, is a lot of times even in research, they're taking one herb and they're trying to see if it fixes one thing, but a lot of these things are working together and they're helping multiple different things. Now watch. Now, this is why this is amazing. I didn't have to go back very far in order to find this research, because all of this is from 2021. So let me say that again. All of the research that I just went over with you is from 2021. Has your doctor kept up with that? Is your doctor keeping up with this? Is your doctor giving you the best care? They're giving you the best research. Are they staying ahead of the curve? Because a lot of times when we're doing things like this, people are going and they're judging based on their education, that by the time that they get it and they graduated 5 years ago, their education is already 15 to 20 years old. And that's why, guys, I never will tout my education, because I believe that education, once you graduate, is already outdated and pretty much useless. Because in education, tells you what to think. They don't teach you how to think. This is true in the educational system today especially. They teach you how to become great test takers. They don't teach you how to think and how to be clinically excellent. All of this research, guys, is from 2021. Wow, I think that's amazing, all right? Let's talk about stress. Oh my goodness, guys, because yes, you can develop poor blood sugar control just by the stress response. If you understand the stress response, you'll be like, yep, I can see exactly why that is. So coming up, if you guys are from the Chicagoland area, coming up this Saturday, December 4th, starting at 10 o'clock to probably about 11:30, we are going to, yes, be talking about stress, but we're going to talk about the stress response. We're going to talk about what happens during the stress response and why that mental stress response, why it leads to problems in the gastrointestinal system, why it leads to problems with hormones, why it leads to an increased inflammatory response, why it leads to literally every single thing, which is why the CDC says 90% of doctors' visits are due to actually mental stress. And if you can't get your mental stress under control, it doesn't matter what you do, is you're going to have a really hard time having restoration of your health. Yeah, you can feel a little bit better, but getting your stress under control is really the way in order to have total restoration of your health. So you have to know what stress is, you have to know what it does and where it comes from. And I'm going to be giving you, not only talking to you from a physiological response, what happens, but I'll show you how you can blunt that, while you're working on it. But I'm also going to show you literally 5 techniques from a mental stress standpoint that have made an unbelievable difference in my life. And yes, if you do that, there are people who aren't going to like you for doing these particular things, but just remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And if you don't draw boundaries, people will keep demanding your time, they will demand your effort, they will demand your attention unless you learn how to say no respectfully, how you learn how to say no. Guys, and this is one of the reasons why is that we have gotten inundated with so many calls, so many emails, so many text messages and things like that, and I appreciate every single one of them, but it literally is impossible for us to be able to respond to all of them. It literally has gotten to that point. So I apologize, but also I can't be online for 24 hours a day trying to respond to everyone. So we're trying to do as best as we can, but we're not going to make everybody happy. That's okay, because at the end of the day, I need to be able to go home to my wife and to my kids and be able to pour from a full cup. And you should be able to do the same as well. So if you guys are from the Chicagoland area, scroll up to the top of this page, and you'll see an Eventbrite link that you can go ahead and get registered for it. Space is limited, first 50 people. After that, you'll go on a waiting list. But just remember, if you are getting registered for it, please, please, please make sure. Please, please make sure that you're going to be there, because you're going to take up someone else's spot who really wants to be there as well. So if you are going to be there, you got to give me your word that you're going to show up for this event. And I really think that this is the most important event, because we're going to talk about stress from a completely different perspective. We're not going to talk about anxiety medication. We're not going to talk about going on antidepressant. We're going to talk about going on Ritalin. We're going to talk about, hey, here's how you head off this stress response. Here's what it causes, and here's how you can go home and start working on it. So it's not even necessarily a seminar or a class as much as it's a training for you to help you become a better human being. So next week, guys, I'm going to talk about this, type 2 diabetes and your nutrition. So I get this question a lot. People ask me, well, how should I be eating as far as type 2 diabetes? And my answer is not keto, okay? It's not keto. But I'm going to show you from a different perspective on how you need to start handling your nutrition when you have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, which, remember, guys, is probably about 2/3 of people in the United States today. Gosh, we should talk about this so much, because remember, type 2 diabetes and having insulin issues is one of the biggest reasons that suppresses your immune system response. So we're talking about it. I don't know who else is, but we're not talking about wearing more masks, trying to avoid a variant. We're talking about strengthening the body to be able to withstand any environment. The next week after that, I'm going to talk about a different perspective on type 2 diabetes and how you should be exercising. And you know what? The worst way to do that is to be doing long, drawn-out cardiovascular exercise. It can actually exacerbate type 2 diabetes. So we'll talk about that next week. Guys, please share this video. I always appreciate it. Let others know that there is hope and there is a way. But you have to be committed to changing your life. All right, guys. I hope you have a great night. Be well, and we'll catch up with you sometime later on in the week. We'll see you soon.